parody, right? I can do something like that. I probably still did a better job than the actual film. Here it is. The terrible Last Airbender movie. The worst film of the last decade. And somehow after 2 years, we're only covering it now. What an absolute pleasure this cluster fumble is. Let's not waste any more time and just dive into the next 100 minutes of our lives. Bro, even the preview is the bloody pebble scene. They know precisely what they're doing here. So how do you start telling the story of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Of course, you've got to cover that opening sequence.
Water, earth, fire, air.
And don't forget plasma! And so they do, aesthetically. But in this very first scene that performs alright, there is already the glaring issue that plagues this entire movie's runtime. Probably literally, actually, and that is the pacing. Kicking a rock?
Earth.
Bam! Easy, quick. In live action? I don't care about the landing, just get on with it. This one issue is constant, as it seems more like the movie is interested in circle jerking over its own pseudo martial arts movements than creating a compelling magic system. But we've not even scratched the surface yet. We're then treated to every filmmaker's secret weapon, a big old block of text with several discrepancies.
The 4 nations, water, earth, fire, and air nomads.
Huh? So they're grammatically all nomads? Or is it the air nomad nation? How do you mess up literally the second sentence?
With the spirit's guidance, the Avatar kept balance in the world.
See, yes, it is Levio-Savitar, not Levio-Savatar. And then we're in it. They thought they were gonna make another one of these. So here they are, Katara and Sokka, no longer representing more Inuit populations and culture. They're white. Because I've always felt underrepresented in cinema. So Katara is testing out her waterbending to make this ball here that is somehow eternally spilling yet not shrinking, as she accidentally gets Sokka wet despite clearly that not lining up. Ah man, but like, their chemistry of being clashing siblings?
I thought about Mom. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, it's not present. I can barely pass her words, but apparently it was, I thought about Mom. I guess that's the source of her bending right now? And super quippy character Sokka over here doesn't have anything to say at all. And when he does...
I always get wet.
Comic genius. And that's the scene. Wrap up, everybody. That was a great day one. Time to kick off narration from Katara again. Yet another one of those filmmaker ploys that really shows a sense of competence with how little you're showing and how much you're saying.
Our father's off fighting in the war.
Oh, some heavy themes there. Can really feel the weight of how that would affect such teenage kids. Really? So they're hunting for a tiger seal, only to end up lost, and Sokka, in all of his knowledge, needs to vent.
I saw how long the drag skids are. That shows you how fast they're going.
You know, Plank of Wood, I really think you should believe in yourself more, buddy. I think you and a career in acting, you hit my laptop. It could go fantastically in your favor at this rate. And thus, they come upon the frozen Avatar. Does it come from a moment of waterbending in rage accidentally, as Katara argues with her boyfriend, bickering in a way that is a trait of their relationship during the early seasons of the story? No! The thing just glows under the ice. The depth you can reach from there is... Well, anyway. We interrupt this terrible episode to give you a little bit of a side plot to this normal review, totally, by showcasing this abomination. It is a Wii game based off of the movie The Last Airbender. This is real. I own it. I spent a lot of money to find any sort of official access to this thing. Enjoy my highlights on the side of this video. Don't mind me, let me just crucify myself in the sky and then you guys will regret it. BAM!
Uncle, look!
Oh, apparently Zuko is a ventriloquist puppet in this version of events. Look how little his mouth is moving. Aang has now been discovered, though he's not gonna wake up here. Though I do have to say, I love the visuals on Appa. Really makes me excited to see how the real live-action Avatar is looking these days, as much as they had plenty of red flags too. The fur is just great.
It's trying to eat me!
Yeah, forget the comedy. That fur is magnificent. And now Aang's been brought back to their village and suddenly awake. No dreamy Katara vision. He's just standing now.
I ran away from home. I was just upset.
You're not still upset?
Man, and everyone is just so wooden. As is the camera. It's just two boring shots on the reveal that this kid is alive and talking. Yawn. And now the fire nomads are here. Or just the fire? You gotta help me out here, text.
Sokka, don't.
Sokka? I hardly even know her. Oh. And the fire gather together all of the elderly and also the kid, who no one decided to protect or inform or even ask who they really are. None of it. So out he comes.
You're scaring these people.
Oh damn. There goes the Avatar. On to reincarnate to some water tribe chaos baby.
I'm the Avatar!
So Aang has been exposed. There's a whole big drama and he's given an ultimatum.
If you don't come, I'll burn down this village.
I'll go with you. Don't hurt anyone.
And again, even with your main protagonist character, there is just no delivery in there. No depth of real empathy. And it kind of comes out of nowhere considering he has no connection with this village so far. Nothing about playing with the children and the animals here. We got a movie runtime to crush this into. Only Zuko here seems to put in any real character, even with his teeny tiny excuse for a prosthetic scar. But this guy's never gonna get an Oscar nomination.
Dev Patel, Lion.
So now he's on the boat, asking to conduct a test.
My name is Iro, and you have my word.
Uncle Iro, not Iro. Simple, right? Anyway, I'm going to use my Ibble to have some Ice-cream I saw on that island over there that I will have now on this Iran boat of ours. All right. Also, now there's this grandma character that's popped up only now. In the animation, the Avatar brings her hope, something she hasn't felt in a long time. In this version, she never meets him, just witnesses him in an unseen scene. It's her who reveals that he's an airbender by recognizing his sweet tats. Oh, and they also name drop.
Since my friend Hama was taken away.
That's the bloodbending woman from like book 3. They really dropped a reference to her. Maybe they did see the original. I wouldn't have thought so. Gran over here then proclaims the boy is the Avatar. He's a master that will change hearts. I guess he's just an organ bender too. And that
He will need you to, and we all need him.
somehow these two children in front of her should invade a warship because they have the prowess and she automatically knows he needs them. It's a lot of leaping. It's bad storytelling is what it is. And all told on the same two boring shots, mostly for minutes at a time. So I'm sure you're all just dying to know what this test thing is all about. Well, here it is. Rock on a table. It's interesting. The logic of the magic system in the movie version is slightly different, even though they don't explain it at all. The element has to be in your vicinity to be used. You can't just make it. Though that also means if you are an elemental bender, you become a magnet to the elements, I guess. And the Avatar synergizes with everything. Must be a pain trying to go to sleep if rocks literally move themselves if you're just nearby. Don't let this guy anywhere near Stonehenge. Man beyond me, apparently. Come on, dude, Zuko! And since he reveals he is the Avatar, he's antagonized. Time to fight. Don't you just love when a simple gust of wind takes 3 full hand movements, and then the guy dives off the boat like a gymnast and flies away with the newly appeared Appa and the others? Not to mention, it's kind of dull and almost hard to see the actual airbending element when he's in the hallway. You know what could have kept it interesting? Some choreography. In the cartoon, Aang is tied up. He's using just a fraction of his power to escape easily, and even uses a helmet to set himself free. Taking all that out here makes your character generically strong with a scene that's underwhelming. And as for the Sok siblings, no scene of them trying to make it work with Appa. That would be the source of too much actual comedy. They're just about, so off they pop.
Aang flew us to his home.
Ong? I'm sorry, I didn't realize he was named after a gong.
Okay, so Ong now retreats back to the Southern Air Temple with some genuinely nice landscape CGI. The text at the bottom somehow makes it feel outdated, but I can believe this tower shot at least.
Is it okay if you tell me your name?
The monks named me Ong.
What? We just heard their name already in the narration. And also, how have you revived him, housed him, rescued him, flown with him, and landed and only now asked his name? The logic for condensing everything into a movie like this leaves some gaping holes. Meanwhile, in the cartoon version, we're already in episode 3, and all of the obvious talking points have long been covered. Name, avatar, airbenders, and even the concern that the air temple may have been invaded by the Fire Nation. There is no forethinking like that coming out of these kids. They're just vessels. Very, very wooden vessels. And then immediately, Ong finds the corpses. Forget the Avatar past lives, the flashback of the good old days, Zuko even clashing against Commander Zhao, or any use for Sokka at all.
This is Monkey Hatsos.
Oh, sweet, this is vintage. Yeah, I'll give you like a 50p for it, sure.
Oh, hey, look, they do have a flashback scene. Walking over a bridge, ogling at jewelry. How uncharming can you get? I loved the fact that the monk mentor was shown to be equally fun, making cakes of all things and pranking the others. But here, bridge. And then Ong floats in the Avatar state, and we get a more realistic version of him being calmed down. And by that I mean, from Ong's perspective, we barely even pay attention to Katara's words against all the wind sound effects, and apparently now there's a dragon spirit in this moment. Whatever the case, it's crushing down any emotive language in the scene as Katara just adds the blandest support lines, like,
Don't give up! We can do this together!
you know, the cartoon was talking more about how they're a family now and they'll be here for him. Tell me you don't understand any of the material without telling me you don't understand any of the material. But feel free to read out the synopsis out to the dinner hall suddenly appearing Commander Zhao.
The Fire Lord has banished his son, the Prince, renounced his love of him, and will not let him return unless he finds the Avatar.
You guys believe all this? I'm just trying to make a living, man. I don't care about all this political family drama.
If you're keeping note of the animated show as well, we've now skipped Kyoshi Island and the city of Omashu right on over to the earthbending village. Oh boy. Okay. So, this is the point where Haru is introduced. There he is.
What is this?
Small kid, no words, barely a character. You'd think he was an unnamed extra. No teenaged angst with a connection to Katara, just immediately being arrested by the Fire Nation.
He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
And for childish reasons too, sticking to the vibe of the early episodes of the cartoon, dumbing down to really twist the knife into Avatar fans. We skip meeting the village, learning bending's illegal, the moral conundrums, the...
That's Lemur. He's earthbending.
No, you idiot, it's the girl!
Or even the news that the Fire Nation are stealing their coal to fuel their ships. You know, actual world building. Instead, it's straight to jail. Hey, wait, this is jail? This looks exactly like an earthbending village. And it's not that they're being imprisoned at the village. This is somewhere specifically different because...
Dad!
They act like they haven't seen each other in months. Desperately idiotic when you remember that the animated series covers this by hoisting all prisoners onto a fully metal ship, specifically to amputate their abilities by removing the option to earthbend. Here, there's none of that. Especially stupid. But at least they point it out.
There's Earth right beneath your feet. The ground.
Told not by Katara in a moment of character development for her as she chooses not to give up on these random people, but by Ong, because he's the Avatar, and then it instantly works. No spirits broken here, just a bunch of nameless. wordless extras. And then comes the rebellion. So let's talk visual effects. First things first, Ong swirls a vortex around himself in defense, except Nerf's Super Soaker over here can just run right into it anyway and join, so it's not really deflecting anything. A simple step in with that spear will probably do the job. Okay, and then we have a million swings that don't influence the fire until the final pose, that's blocked by a normal wall. Not a pile of coal they've collected in an ironic twist if you understand the lore, or as a set piece that can interestingly glow against the fire, just a wall. What's the next response after their enemy hugs mid-fight? Ah, fire and wall again. But this time, they've doubled up and did an air kick to do the exact same thing again. Bloody brilliant, these action sequences. And then we get the highlight. This is a parody, right? I can do something like that. I probably still did a better job than the actual film. You might as well just grab a chunk and throw it yourself. It'd be way faster. And I want to see a comment like, did they run out of budget to make more rock CGI? Or it's a nice idea, they just didn't show it right. But no, that was the intention right on filming day. That one speck of a rock lifted by 6 guys screaming at the air is choreographed just to be ammo for this guy up front to hit that one guy in the background, with no other debris affecting the scene. So even if they brewed another wall up, it wouldn't make sense. This was unironically the plan. How do you screw this up? They put more focus on making it a one-shot, so even then, the sky screamer in the front here blocks the view of 2 of the earth-swinging earthbenders. Seeing this the first time, I had never laughed harder at a film. The Netflix adaptation could never live up to the height that is this movie's magnum opus. And here's another firewall for you. What are they teaching you fire nomads in school? Well, I guess we'll never know. That's over in book 3. It's the same battle arena. Oh, are you now gonna jump off into... No, you're not. Okay, you're just gonna freeze. Cool. I have made a mistake. This video is 10 pages long. Oh no. Thanks for reaching the halfway mark at least. If you want to see more movies, but ironically, come subscribe. We supply all sorts of things. Terrible is just one outlet. So the village is happy. They reveal some scrolls. The statue of Avatar Kyoshi is apparently here, not on an island. And only now do they learn, after seemingly days of traveling together,
I ran away before they trained me to be the Avatar.
How has this not been noticed yet? Regardless, they decide to head to the Northern Water Tribe to learn waterbending, and the village throw flowers upon them. It's at this point we come to see there were other plans. Instead of montaging events over at the Earth Pimple, there's actually deleted scenes showing a dance party with the village, and also a fortune teller that warns of the dangers of the Fire Nation taking over the Northern Water Tribe. And also, hey, the Kyoshi Warriors are apparently a thing, but they were deleted later on because they don't have an impact on the final act of Book 1. You can actually spot one in the original. It's that hooded girl right there. We got some serious crunching here, and to be honest, it's probably a blessing that a character like Suki dodged the butchering. Who's Haru again? We never hear of them ever again. Ong is now learning waterbending along a river, perturbed that he's just not getting it.
He was having trouble with waterbending.
And thankfully Katara was having the exact same issues, since the editors must have pressed the FX button somewhere. And of course, it is all told in dull, expository narration. Man, the Fire Nation looks surprisingly green and fieldly. Nothing at all to do with volcanoes on an island. Oh, but look, there are sparks in the distant backgrounds. Phew. They really know their presentation. Anyway, Commander Zhao is slowly coming to the conclusion of going to the Northern Tribe and telling Fire Lord Ozai since...
I have found scrolls in the library.
That library being the Spirit Library in the desert. A dynamic change to have the Fire Nation invade. What did the owl think? Oh, actually, that is in the original. Just Zhao. Also, hello! Here's the full-on Fire Lord. No reveal, no name drop, not even a reference to his title. Just here. No silhouettes, no drama, just a boy in red and gold. How can your director say they removed all of the humor because audience wanted to take it seriously when you've also taken out the drama of the plotline as well? Golly. You know, for the Kingdom of the Earth, there sure is a lot of water in the middle of this shot. And also, there isn't really a northern Earth Kingdom. Like, Ba Sing Se is kind of the top. Any further than that and you're at the Northern Air Temple. Now we're really just making things up. Yeah, we're fully making things up. To be fair, I could see this being an ample expansion. In the war, the Fire Nation expanded their land with these colonies. That is canon, so maybe there is room to expand them more. Zuko is brooding in a hood and asks a kid about his own backstory.
Then Prince Zuko was sentenced to an Agni Ki duel.
Oh yeah, I love Agni Ki duels. I mean, I've never been to one before, but I imagine it has something to do with key fighting, right? Or like something out of Kingdom Hearts 3 or something. Oh my god! It's funny. Dev Patel is clearly one of the only ones putting in some real effort in this movie. Compared to the protagonists, he's a real diamond in the rough. If only anything else around his face was on equal ground as him, he did not deserve a Raspberry Award for this movie. You guys remember that time when Ong fought a tank, right?
Bring it down with fire!
Well, yeah, that's all you could do. You need to wait for the driver to die of dehydration. And now we're at the Northern Earth Kingdom again. Hold on, why did they show us that establishing shot earlier anyway? It had no relevance. We just went from one Fire Nation scene to the other. Well, now it's relevant. Not for long. This is about how Gong can't quite get waterbending because he's distracted. He wants to visit the Northern Air Temple just over there, and also he keeps thinking about dead bodies. But Soka Hose over here doesn't want him traveling because they're being followed.
Try to talk him out of it. I guess your talk didn't work.
There was no talk in between this and that. A brief flashback of little message and some waves at nighttime. That's all. Okay. And now we meet Old Man in Temple. That's his name. An Earth villager who's here, in air nomad clothes. You know, the anime had a whole legion of gliders in the Northern Air Temple. They're gone, showing us the relocated Avatar statues.
These are all the avatars. These are the reincarnations of you over the years.
Actually, it's Avatar now. I think I know. I think. And you know, I find it kind of charming how the statues in all forms are always wrong bit by bit. The animated series doesn't show Kyoshi for Earth, and live action, Karoom has no hood for water, or Yang Chen being female for the Airbenders.
You will forgive me, won't you? I have lived in poverty because of your absence, Avatar.
This is actually a pretty neat addition. I like the idea of a civilian betraying the Avatar over his absence. And also the signs, like how he's wearing air nomadic clothing, which should be a red flag of deceit, or that he can't pronounce Avatar correctly. Or is that just the movie being stupid and inconsistent? Though the anime also had a betrayal, but a more desperate one of building weapons for the Fire Nation to survive. A bit more nuance, you know? Politics. Anyway, Ong is captured now. We've made it to episode 13. Skipping the Avatar Roku chat, Sozin's Comet, Jet and the Freedom Fighters, the Storm, the Great Divide, that one is fair. Although while captured, there is this blue dragon spirit. He brings a warning of danger.
You must go to the Northern Water Tribe.
But like, that was already the plan, my guy. In the cartoon, this is Avatar Roku's animal guide, so they're pretty integral. In this movie, it's just a dragon spirit, and talking to Zhao is just okay. They mostly just reuse the same talking points since the scene's so small, except none of the threat of...
So I'll keep you alive, but just barely.
And also these guys click on that Ong can't use the other elements yet. Great. No, that can't be his blue spirit design. Who made this? This is a Halloween costume at come on. Why? Why is he so hairy, monkeying around while not showing us any of his action with actual blade choreography? Because that defining character trait isn't worth portraying on the film, obviously. And as he's set free and Zhao witnesses the aftermath, all he has to say is...
Fools.
Who? The guards? Are you not one of the fools in this circumstance for specifically setting up this whole scenario? What is this? In the animation, the duo ladder themselves towards the exterior walls. Isn't it an impressively creative form of escape?
This time... Oh. Well, for one, he's not even imprisoned at the Fire Nation station. This is still the Northern Air Temple, so they really weren't using their brain cells for this. And also, there is no fighting. None needed when you just block the view with CGI curtains the whole time anyway. A foolproof plan on Ong's part. Defense using air nomad training tools. Except... problem solved for the Fire Nation, right? That's all they have to do. Just fire on all sides, right? And then, poof, off he goes in flames after a second or two. And so the Blue Spirit briefly gets less than a second at a time of actual fight choreography before Ong has a choice. Help his ally or fight too. Bit of an odd moment to not be considering that before. In the anime, there's way more context since they had escaped and the guy was unconscious. Spoilers, by the way, on his identity in case you're watching this story first time through me. And if you are, what's wrong with you? Talk about awful choices. We're next then shakily droning over the battlefield as the Blue Spirit is playing Dynasty Warriors or something and the stunt workers are practicing for the real shot. Look closer. That guy just spins himself to wipe out and the next guy hops forward, swings, and then stops swinging. It would be harder to notice if they weren't more central to the shot than the guy we're meant to be looking at. And then they combine together for somewhat of an Avengers shot. But it kind of gets lost, or half the poses are hidden behind extras in the foreground, or just the hairy man himself.
Why are you doing this? Who are you?
Ew, whose idea was it to keep the Blue Spirit's mouth visible? They then drag out, have that identity reveal. Dev Patel! And Ong has no moment thinking on the morals of it all, instantly vanishing in a smokescreen. Like, they saw all the pieces, but just jumbled it up to make a far inferior version. How? Now, I sure hope we have the... the whole way through this mission. Otherwise, I'll be very disappointed. In fact, can I find that? Oh. Oh! Are you kidding me? He didn't spot me when he looked at me. And Ong leaves Zuko in the forest without even a chance to wake up and flesh out their dynamic. Not that he would have done anyway. Following that, Zhao complains to the Fire Lord, and I have a few issues. First of all, why did they build this? Like, the set people. This cost money. It's just a reference. And it's to a story beat that happens way beyond this movie. It's a waste of money. Can I buy it? And also...
You think my son, the Blue Spirit?
Yes.
Why now is Mflord obscured from the camera? I know what he looks like. Blam! There he is. Drama averted. We've already done this. And that's the whole scene. Slightly longer than planned, because Zhao may have forgotten his line halfway through that pause. And as Zuko returns home dealing with eternal conflict... Zuko is assassinated. I don't remember that at first, but apparently it is real. Done by hired pirates in the anime. But here we then immediately cut to Upper anyway, so you practically forget. Come on, movie, pick a side. Are we taking this seriously or skimming to make it as child-friendly as possible? Skimming is the answer, as when arriving and presenting themselves...
We arrived at the Northern Water Tribe. We presented ourselves to the royal court.
It's all told in narration again. No one speaks, just more popping around in front of the girl with the penis hair. Only the best for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live-action movie 2010. And then just as quickly, we're preparing battle stations for the oncoming war. Instantly.
If we keep them to the courtyard and the marketplace till night falls, where we have the advantage, we will succeed.
No meeting the court, nothing to establish Yue and Sokka. Right to war, with aluminum roof Sokka stepping up to be the princess's constant guard.
I had a feeling you might volunteer.
Did you? Because I wouldn't have guessed. They've spoken no dialogue lines to each other yet. And then there's the whole Master Parku bit. In the anime, he's the waterbending master we've entirely come to approach. And it turns out the movie version is this guy. And he does have some teaching scenes. It's just after the war prep for some reason.
Would you like to spar? You haven't sparred in a few days.
To which they do. Skipping out on everyone else in this scene and completely overshadowing the biggest point of plotting connection to this guy, his refusal to teach Katara at all. This is like his definitive conflict, opens up to some tension, lets our characters grow, and most importantly, gives Katara some sparring of her own. Look at this footage, it's fantastic! From the anime. That's all missing here. Parkour is just a tool for lessons, it seems. But we can find remnants on the cutting room floor, it's just... Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's really, really bad. The waterbending master boiled down to just pushings, and the whole idea of Katara icing her feet for stability turns into this. This is embarrassing. What about that whole spirly ice cage at the end of the anime fight? Oh no, this has been reused for Ong instead. And then the only other thing that happens is Ong lifts all the water everywhere briefly. Whoa, wow, he's so strong, he levitated the water in a way that shows no artistic martial artsy prowess. He's so cool and good on a budget.
Your son died in that siege, didn't he?
Ah, and here's a good old reference to the show's best moments. Although I imagine if a second movie came out, they'd somehow warp the scene into...
Soldier boy comes marching home.
Here's a walking chat with UA and Nerf Super Soaker Fortnite Combat S&G Water Blaster as they somewhat have a moment together, and UA explains her birth. Like normal conversation.
They prayed for days to the moon spirit and dipped me into the sacred waters.
And Soka is somewhat animating over there. Totally listening. Be nice if there were some visuals like the anime gave us, but ramble exposition is fine too, I guess. Here's a 60-second ongoing clip of swooshy dooshy where they forgot to animate the VFX again. And even if it's not meant to be there, why? No one is particularly interested in the martial arts poses separate to the bending it provides, especially not the 8-year-old demographic you've twisted this material to aim towards. I want to yawn, but aggressively. But in comes Soot.
Anyway, Fire Nation is here.
They just happened to wander to the balcony for a front row view, but come on, it was already written to have them on the back of Appa. Way more dramatic, and some romantic flair is in there too. It's not like you can't do Appa scenes. Zuko, by the way, is alive. He's been in hiding amongst the guards, and now is dipping off to his own mission. Swimming under the water before stopping under the ice. That's pretty cool, actually, though I thought you have to have the element nearby to bend it in this universe. Apparently, fire breathing is still an option, or in this case, putting it in your hand? Huh? Also, from this version of events, there's no initial siege and pause, no kayaking stealth, and no comedic turtle seals.
Be quiet!
Just done early, in broad daylight too. Because smart, and suddenly Ong barrages in asking to see the dragon spirit and asking for a spiritual space to meditate. No scenes of self-doubt and just knowing it's an option. Off we pop. Okay. Nice. This is where all the focus goes, on semi-complex long takes.
Without losing focus. Some of the great monks can meditate for 4 days.
Alright, Ong, I think it's fair to say your eyesight is pretty good. You can indeed read a prompt a little bit off from the camera. Good job, buddy. So we've now skipped the whole part about Sokka training with the tribe and conflicting over Yue's arranged marriage. She's single in this universe, so the moment the Avatar is doing something, they buzz off, readying for Mr. Twisty.
I always knew you'd return.
Me too.
Oh man, so in this version, none of the gang, or I guess Gong in this case, ever see Zuko across their travels. He's only ever trailing behind. Weird.
Fire Lord's son, you took him from our village.
And now they fight, but not before Zuko is given time to plant his ammo everywhere. Now how you think this action sequence is gonna roll out? It's a semi-finale. Gotta use some of that good VFX, right? Sure. This fire trail POV shot extinguished at the camera is nice. I like how water gets on the lens, but anything that actually follows the actors, and it's debatable. Like Zuko's first kick, shot right out of a tokusatsu show with that zoom in, that doesn't properly follow Zuko. There's some nice compositions when they're not fighting, on one side of the battlefield because fire is a light source, but then how does the fight play out? Well, Zuko has 2 moves.
Slide to the left, slide to the right.
That'll do. And as for Katara, having been trained, but only sorta, somewhat, in the raw files of the movie, what does she do? Blocks number 1, forgets about number 2. Can these people not count to 2? How have you made Katara this weak? And the siege begins. Ah, cool. I can't wait for yet another boss run. With all of the greatest hits, like this hit. And that one. Don't forget a little bit of that. Wowie wee wah. You know, it really is better the 7th time.
Micro, Fortnite in Free Fire, Fortnite in Call of Duty, Call of Duty, PUBG, PUBG, FIFA 21, PUBG.
Can you guys hear that? It sounds like my internal self just going insane. So after Zuko has a moment staring at Katara's unconscious corpse for a moment, the big battle begins. Didn't know the Northern Water Tribe had such an owl fetish. Just the sound of a who and they're all jacking it. Komodo Ryans have now been released in CG. It's a bit choppy, but a cool piece of eye candy anyway. Certainly works better than Momo sometimes. For your classic wartime spectacle, as Zuko has nabbed Ong and placed him inside a house. Alright. Originally this was a blizzard on the outskirts and he was finding a cave, but I guess this room is immune to siege. Sure.
Just wait till everyone's fighting everyone.
Is that not already happening now? Why aren't you slipping out now?
As the Avatar, you are not meant to hurt others.
Oh, well, I think Avatar Kyoshi would like to have some words with you. Anyway, it's the same unnamed dragon spirit again. Not connected to Avatar Roku, not the face stealer and that iconic moment like in the original, just this vague boy again.
Use the ocean. Show them the power of water.
Okay, the solution Aang needed last time was finding the moon and ocean spirits and realizing that they were the koi fish. Here, I don't know, use the water or something, dumbass. And Zuko broods like a man-child, monologuing about his entire family dramas. He's a traumatized kiddo.
He doesn't like my mother.
I too wish I could do that when strangers start trauma dumping. Just whoop, whee out of there. Ong then runs along the walls as Zuko just kind of stands there. Master Paku's having fun with these water tentacles. See, this is more like the VFX I'm hoping for. Less of the pellet bullets going everywhere.
I have decided it is in our best interests to kill the moon spirit.
Oh, spoilers? Just gonna tell us way in advance? And to Iroh way off on the ship? And he lets you live? My brother in Christ, for these final moments as the big Ong versus Zuko scene, they're playing hide and seek in a basement. And Zuko is fooled by the most basics of decoys you can imagine. Brain cells were washed away long ago. Oh my god. And this was being done unironically. Is this meant to be the rare form of humor? Something to get all the 6-year-olds cackling? I get that he's Twinkle Toes, but way to cheesify your ending. And then they're fighting without bending. For some reason, no establishment that either of them can do hand-to-hand content. We'd skipped any Agni Kais of the past. Until water is used for the first time, and Zuko just stands in place to be... instant. Game over. And wasn't even Ong using his smarts to use the number 2 bending he has. No one can count to 2 in this movie. It was... Again, not quite central on the composition there, cameraman. What's going on here? Now, the original fight wasn't long either, but it at least went off because it was nighttime, full moon, and also they were surrounded by a snowy blizzard. Here, it's just naff. And then they run off.
You won't be killed by waterbenders if you stay hidden here.
Why would you say that? You have met twice. And this isn't really much of a life-saving moment as choosing to carry him out of the deadly blizzard. Like, all of the story beats of the show are watered down and executed as badly as possible. Why do I want to see the rest of the other books to see how they could be butchered? I could not believe that worked. Oh, he's got a second phase. That is embarrassing. And and I am so upset. I was really looking forward to a good boss fight.
Why do spirits take the form of such benign things?
You just gonna stand there, Iro? You waited alongside on the boat, walked to the gardens, witnessed it being yoinked out, and now are just watching? This is not Uncle Iro. That man was on this immediately.
Whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash on you tenfold!
So Zhao continues to dangle the fish in the air, the others arrive, Iro does nothing until a bit of thinking and thonking, and eventually we get to...
We are now the gods.
No!
Isn't it beautiful? Look at all of this. I mean, come on. It's like one big giant piece of art, and the color grading's gone. Nice.
And why did he stab it with a dagger? Firebending is more thematic. Why is Iro Darth Vader now? And why did she faint so dramatically? I wish this was covered in the faux stage play. I'm sure the actors there would be performing like this, 1-to-1. And so the blood moon rises once again, and water bending is removed. And Iro looks like a doctor regenerating. But in all seriousness, establishing the elements as being needed to bend them makes this an actual cool idea in concept. Iro can firebend from nothing. Look how disheveled that poor fire grunt looks up front. Is this why Zuko could before? That's still poorly managed. Okay, well the magic is gone now. Even I could make an effect that looks like that. What's he gonna do? More fire pellets? No, it was just a threat. And Zhao just leaves, I guess. The battlefield is now red and slow-mo.
Then there's still a chance. You can give your life back for the spirits.
Oh, never mind. I guess we'll just tell the solution immediately too. And also hear it from Iro rather than Yue herself. That would be too impactful. And then after a little bit of face rubbing, seriously, what is she doing with her hands? She takes a dip and goes yip yip. Here's a microsecond of Sokka crying. Don't need any more than that. Clearly, I don't think he could do it. At least he got to live up to his name. By letting her go, I guess he really did soak her. And now she's the moon. But it's pretty nice how floating in the water gives her her floating form, as well as drains her hair. And color returns. Yay ha. Remember when Zuko confronted Zhao on the bridge? That doesn't happen anymore, because Iro exists and teleports this time around. At the garden when Zhao leaves, and then with Zuko when Zhao escapes. Instead of a fight, Iro tells Zuko to walk away. And he does. Odd. Zhao lashes out behind his back anyway, and Iro shoots it down.
You stand alone, and that has always been your great mistake.
To be fair, it must be hard to try to make original greatness when you're rivaling against lines like...
So this is how the great Commander Zhao acts in defeat?
Instead, Zhao is taken out by leftover Northern Water Tribe members. Alright, just some grunts. That's a little dark. Like Korra levels of airbending air out of your lungs level dark. And then they let him go, so that Spirit can take him later. Oh! They just drowned him! Straight up! No spirit ending for Zhao? I'm in disbelief. I know there's plenty of room for changes, but I really thought they were gonna go for more. Brutal. Why can't they do that with everyone then? Anyway, Ong has his 300 moments. Slow-mo and choreography, I ain't got much to say as he runs along the battlefield to witness the fleet. There's also a deleted battle scene in the middle of action hijinks since we never actually saw Sokka fight at all without it.
Do it for you, hey!
Yuhei? Boy, you can't even pronounce your own girlfriend's name right? Time for one last flashback. Running away before doing some actions now. The Avatar can lift all the water, push and pull the tide, swing those Fire Nation ships, and make... a full tsunami wave. From sheer visuals, all the Fire Nation give up and flee as their ships are pounded upon. Wow, look at that slow-mo. No more named characters to probably voice their thoughts, just Zuko and Iro kayaking in the back, somehow safe, as they're all brushed away. Sure, the music kicked in for once, and that was a lot of CGI animation, but it was just a levitated wall of water. No one has any originality in this world. Earth wall, fire wall, water wall. Wow. The anime had the whole dynamic with the ocean spirit going mad without the moon spirit, Ong helping to shape it. It punished the people and doomed Zhao to an eternity in madness. But sure, Big Wave do it too. Everyone bows down to Ong because...
They want you to be their avatar.
Not that that was ever really something they could choose. Ong does one final Marvel pose. Tell me that is not just an Avengers theme. And after sticking on it too long, we cut to black. Ending on Ozai expositing about Sozin's comet. No visuals, and hiring...
I do, Father.
The one that got away. Never having to act on screen and dodging the nightmare that was all of this. Sonic Prime! There is more, apparently. There's a scene of Ozai making fire from a spark in a field or something. A decent scene showing his power and ruthlessness against the idea of the Avatar rising 3 fields of water, but I'll spare you more of my ramblings. Let's just hope Avatar Studios knows what they're doing enough to not make the same mistakes again on Netflix. You can't go this badly again. It's impossible. Though I'd probably be happy either way. At least there's still the upcoming Earth Avatar animated series and the Adult Gang movie and the Zuko movie and 2 other spin-off series in mind. Lots of stuff coming up. I'll take any and all new things Avatar. Just not the blue people. What is this? What is this? Huh? I missed one. And so we just entirely repeat. Oh, okay. Sure is good none of the firebenders are using their fire right now. Wow. Wowee. For now, my name's been Dazz. You didn't really care. If you're interested in seeing the full VOD of us playing Avatar, The Last Airbender, the movie, the Wii game, the stream, check out the live tab on our channel and keep an eye out as we're hopefully going to be streaming more often every Wednesday. And on that, I'll see you in a bit.
That wasn't a good play.
I'll say. No kidding. Horrible.
But the effects were decent.